Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Mukesh English. Let's have a discussion of a famous TED Talk by Kailash Satyarthi in 2015 titled How to Make Peace, Get Angry. Who is Kailash Satyarthi? Kailash Satyarthi was born in January 1954 in Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh. He is a well-known Indian social activist and reformer. He is popularly known for his campaign in India against child labor. He was honored with the Nobel Prize in 2014 for children's right to education. Now about this TED Talk. In this TED Talk in 2015, Mr. Satyarthi starts this TED Talk by narrating all the things that made him angry at his younger days. He asked two questions. Why can't one adopt anger for the larger good of society? Why can't the same anger is used to challenge and change the evils of the world? So in this manner, setting a tone for his talk, the activist Mr. Satyarthi, he went on to narrate the story of how anger was instrumental in him renouncing his upper caste surname. So that's a brief introduction of his TED Talk. Now let's try to analyze or summarize the TED Talk by Kailash Satyarthi. To begin with, let's have a discussion about anger. As far as anger is concerned, Mr. Satyarthi says that when he was 11, seeing some of his friends leaving the school because their parents could not afford textbooks, which made him angry. When he was 27, hearing the plight of a desperate slave father whose daughter was about to be sold to a brothel, made him angry. When he was 50, lying on the street in a pool of blood along with his own son, made him angry. He further comments that for centuries we were taught anger is bad. Our parents, our teachers, our priests, everyone taught us how to control and suppress our anger. But Mr. Satyarthi questions, why can't we convert our anger for the larger good of society? He would like to make this anger as an instrumental for the change. Why can't we use our anger to challenge and change the evils of the world? And that's what Mr. Satyarthi has tried to do it. So further, he talks about the great idea in the form of a story. Mr. Satyarthi opines that he would like to mention that he had been a big admirer of Mahatma Gandhi since his childhood. Gandhiji fought and led India's in freedom movement, but more important, he taught us, Gandhiji taught us how to treat the most vulnerable sections, the most deprived people with dignity and with respect. How to treat those deprived people with dignity and with respect. It was taught by Gandhiji according to Mr. Satyarthi. Mr. Satyarthi further says that when India was celebrating Mahatma Gandhi's birth centenary in 1969, when he was 15 years old, 1 5, an idea came to his mind. What is the idea? Why can't we celebrate Gandhi Jayanti in a very different manner? He knew, as perhaps many of us might know, that in India, a large number of people are born in the lowest segment of caste. As they are treated untouchables, these are the people. Forget about allowing them to go to the temples. They cannot even go to the houses and the shops of the high caste people. So, Satyarthi says here, he was very much impressed with the leaders of his town. Satyarthi was very much impressed with the leaders of his town who were speaking very highly against the caste system and the untouchability, and they were talking about Gandhian ideals. So Satyarthi was very much inspired, and he thought, let's set an example by inviting these people to eat food cooked and served by the untouchable community. So Mr. Satyarthi thought that, so why don't we invite those leaders, those who are talking in the favor of those untouchables? So why can't we invite them to have lunch dinner with us? So he went to some low caste, so called untouchable people. He tried to convince them that it was unthinkable for them that these leaders will definitely come to the house. So these untouchables, they told him, no, 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 it's not possible. It has never happened. But Mr. Satyarthi told, look at these leaders. They are so great. They are against untouchability and they will come. And if nobody comes, we can set an example. So these people thought that he is also a kind of naive person. Finally, they were convinced. So Mr. Satyarthi took his bicycles. So he took his bicycle and he invited political leaders. He was so thrilled, rather empowered to see that each one of them agreed to come. He thought, great idea. We can set an example. We can bring about change in the society. So he was very happy when those leaders they agreed. They showed the consent that yes, they will come, they will have food in the houses of those untouchable or the low caste people. He was too happy that because he was about to bring a change in the society. But what happens further? Mr. Satyarthi, who invited all the leaders to have food prepared by the untouchables, the day has come. All these untouchables, three women, two men, they all agreed to come, and he could recall that they had used the best of the clothes. They brought new utensils. They had taken baths hundreds of times because it was unthinkable for them to do. It was a moment of change. They gathered, food was cooked. It was 7 o'clock. By 8 o'clock, they kept on waiting because it's not very uncommon that the leaders become late for an hour. Everybody knows that the leaders they don't come in time. So all those low caste people they have been waiting for those leaders. It's still 8 o'clock and they took our bicycles and finally what did they decided this decide they went to these leaders home just to remind them that tonight they are going to have lunch and sorry they are going to have dinner with them. So one of the leaders wives told me, sorry, he's having some headache, perhaps he can't come. Kailash went on to another leader and his wife told, okay, you go, he will definitely join. So he thought that the dinner will take place, though not at that large a scale. Kailash Satyarthi went back to the venue, which was a newly built Mahatma Gandhi Park, which was a newly built Mahatma Gandhi Park, and it was already 10 o'clock. None of the leaders showed up, none of the leaders turned up, absolutely double standard. That made him very angry. Look at here the word anger, how the anger gets converted into the change. That made him very angry. Satyarthi was standing, leaning against Mahatma Gandhi's statue. He was emotionally drained, rather exhausted. Then he sat down where the food was lying. He kept his emotions on hold, but then when he took the first bite, he broke down in tears. And suddenly he felt a hand on his shoulder. Who is there? He felt a hand on his shoulder. It was the healing, motherly touch of an untouchable woman. And that untouchable woman told Satyarthi, Kailash, why are you crying? You have done your bit. You have eaten the food cooked by the untouchables, which has never been happened in our memory. So today you have won. You have won today, Mr. Kailash. You have won. And yes, she was absolutely right. She was very much right in saying that Mr. Satyarthi has won today. Now, Mr. Satyarthi invited all the leaders, which we have know very well, and they replied positively, but none of them had turned right. All the people prepared food, they waited for the leaders, none of them turned up. One old lady encouraged Kailash Satyarthi that he had eaten the food cooked by untouchables and he had won that day. Later, Mr. Satyarthi, he has come back to his home. A little after midnight, he was shocked to see that so many high class elderly people were sitting in his courtyard. He saw his mother, he saw elderly women were crying. They were pleading to these elderly people because these elderly people from the high caste, they threatened his family members to outcast his whole family. And outcasting the family is the biggest social punishment one can think of. Somehow they agreed to punish only Kailash. So there was a kind of negotiations. They negotiated that okay, we won't outcast you, but we will punish Kailash. And you know what was the punishment? The punishment was purification. Purification. That means to say, Mr. Satyarthi should go to 600 miles away from his hometown to the river Ganges to take a holy dip, and after that, he should organize a feast for those priests, for those pujaris, not one, 101, one not one pujaris, one not one priest should be called for the food, and he should wash their feet and drink that water, then he can be purified. Then only the whole family can be protected, from being outcast. Now let's know whether Mr. Satyarthi has accepted or denied. Mr. Satyarthi said that it's completely nonsense. He refused to accept this punishment. He said, how did they punish me? I was barred from entering into my own kitchen and my own dining room. My utensils were separated, but the night when he was angry, they wanted to outcast him, and he decided to outcast the entire caste system. Look at here, there's a positive result of his anger. Everywhere you'll find the positive result of his anger. And finally, what did he decide? He decided to outcast the entire system. He said, you are going to outcast me, I'm going to outcast your whole community. So he had decided to outcast the entire system. And that was possible because the beginning would have been to change the family name, the surname, because in India, most of the family names are caste names. So what did he think? He told that, okay, you want to outcast me? I outcast your system. I will change my surname now. So finally, Mr. Satyarthi said he decided to drop his surname, and later on he gave a new name to himself, that is Satyarthi, that means seeker of truth. And that was the beginning of his transformative anger. Now the beginning of his anger, how the anger is getting convert, right? Now how the anger is getting convert. So that is the beginning of his transformative anger. Now let us see what happens further. Now Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, he talks about his life in the jail and how the anger has brought a change in his life, and he talks about his 35, when he of about his 30s. He says that most of the brightest ideas came to his mind when he was out of anger. Likewise, when he was 35 years old, he sat in a lockup, tiny prison. The whole night he was angry, but that anger has given a birth to new idea. When he was caught, now the question is here, why was he caught in the prison? Why was in the prison? What's the reason behind it? So Mr. Satyarthi was very happy freeing a dozen children from slavery, handing them over to their parents. He cannot explain his joy when he frees a child, but when he was waiting for his train to come back to his hometown, Delhi, he saw that Dozens of children were arriving. They were being trafficked by someone, human trafficking. They were being trafficked by someone. He stopped them. He stopped those people also. He complained to the police. But you know what happened? The policemen, instead of helping him, they threw Kailash Satyarthi in this small, tiny, shell like prison. And that was a night of anger when one of the brightest and biggest idea was born in the mind of Satyarthi. And he thought that if he keeps on freeing 10 children and 50 more will join, that's not done. And he believed in the power of the consumers. And this was the first time when a campaign was launched by him or anywhere in the world to educate. What is a campaign? To educate and to sensitize the consumers to create a demand for the child labor free rucks. He decided to educate the people. He decided to educate them that there should be demand for what kind of world? A world without any child labor. So in Europe and America, it was successful and it has resulted in a fall in child labor in South Asian countries by 80%. Mr. Satyarthi says that because of that effort in the South Asian countries, the child labor fell around 80%. So not only that, but this first ever consumers power or the consumers campaign has grown in other countries, in other industries, maybe chocolate, maybe apparel, maybe shoes, and it has gone beyond his anger at the age of 5. I'm sorry, his anger at the age of 11 when he realized how important education is for every child. He got an idea to collect the used books and to help the poorest children. He created a book bank at the age of 11, but he did not stop. Later on, he confounded the whole world's single largest civil society campaign for education that is called the Global Campaign for Education. That has helped in changing the whole thinking towards education from the charity mode to the human rights mode, and that has concretely helped the reduction of out of school children by half in the last 15 years. So the dropout rate had come down comparing to the last 15 years. That is Mr. Kailash Satyarthi has opined in his TED talk. Now, his anger at the age of 27. What was the anger? To free that girl who was about to be sold to a brothel. That anger has given him an idea to go for a new strategy of raid and rescue and freeing the children from slavery. He was so lucky that it was not one or 10 or 20, but his colleagues and he had able to physically liberate, you know how many children? 83,000 child slaves. He was able to liberate, he was able to free 83,000 child slaves and hand them over back to the families and mothers. He knew that they needed global policies. They organized the worldwide marches against the child labor, and that has also resulted in a new international convention to protect the children who are in the worst forms. And the concrete result was that the number of child laborers globally has gone down by one third in the last 15 years, according to Kailash Satyarthi, the Nobel Prize winner. Now, the transformation of anger into idea and action. Kailash Satyarthi further says that after anger, what comes? It was an idea and action, because anger is a power, anger is an energy, anger is a law of nature. That energy can never be created, can never be vanished, can never be destroyed. This is what mentioned by Kailash Satyarthi in his TED talk. And further he says that why can't the energy of anger be translated and harnessed to create a better and beautiful world, a more just and equitable world, a world where everybody gets a kind of equal opportunity. He further comments that anger is within each one of us. Everybody has anger. If we are confined in the narrow shells of the egos and the circles of the selfishness, then the anger will turn out to be hatred, violence, revenge, and destruction. But if you are able to break the circles, then the same anger could turn into great power. So, what we can do? He says we can break those circles by using our inherent compassion and connect with the world through compassion to make this world better. That same anger could be transformed into ideas and action. So, finally, at the end of the speech, Mr. Satyarthi he requests the audience to become angry. And he says, the angriest among us is the one who can transform his ideas in who can transform his anger into ideas and action. I repeat, the angriest among us is the only that person who has the ability to transform his anger into action and into ideas. So finally, Kailash Satyarthi answer the questions of Chris Anderson. He says that when he frees a child, the child who has lost all his hope that he will never come back to his mother, the first smile of freedom, the mother who has lost all hope that the son or the daughter can never come back and sit in a lap, they become so emotional. And the first tear of joy rolls down on a cheek. Kailash Satyarthi sees the glimpse of the God in this picture. He says that this is his biggest inspiration, and he feels himself so lucky that not once but thousands of times he has been able to witness his God in the faces of those children, and they are his biggest inspiration. So, dear friends, let's recapitulate the whole TED Talk. He speaks about his anger, how the anger can be turned into ideas and action. Then he talks about his great idea. Then he talks about one of the stories which has inspired him to move further. Then he talks about what is the reaction of the leaders who came forward to have foot with the untouchables. Further, he speaks about where he himself outcast the entire system, where he changes his name, his surname. Then he talks about his move when he was in prison. He talks about his anger at the age of 27. He also talks about how to transform the anger into idea and action. And finally, he says that who and what inspires Kailash Satyarthi. So, dear friends, in this TED Talk, there are so many questions are easily answered. The questions like which are the incidents which provoked Kailash Satyarthi to be angry? Why did Kailash Satyarthi decide to outcast himself? How did he convert anger into power? And finally, he globally he globally tried to liberate the child labor and prove that anger could be transformed into idea and action, and what inspired Kailash Satyarthi to become an inspiration to others. So thank you so much for watching this video. Click on the like button, write in the comment box. If you are not yet subscribed, subscribe the channel. Thank you once again. Dear friends, thank you so much for watching this video. You can reach me at mukeshenglish@gmail.com. Please do subscribe the channel, click on the like button for more videos on literature, workbook, pronunciation, grammar, communication skills, presentation skills, interview skills. Stay in tune with Mukesh English. Thank you once again.